We're celebrating 30 years this weekend at Spa-Francorchamps of SRO organising GT races, whether that is as BPR, as it used to be, or whether it is as the SRO Motorsports Group right now. And so, to commemorate 30 years, and there are 30 more to come, one hopes, we have a wonderful grid of cars here representing all the different eras that SRO has organised GT racing, going back to BPR, going through the FIA GT1 World Championship days, and even up to the present day of GT3 racing as well. David Addison and John Watson trackside, and John, we've been getting a bit misty-eyed, reminiscing about some wonderful cars and wonderful liveries and great memories.
Well, David, go back 30 years. Think of the damage I could do if I could go back 30 years from today. But here we have a fantastic field of cars at an iconic racetrack, and what I found interesting was watching a little bit of the qualifying. Didn't over-egg the pudding by watching everything, but the lap time of the car on pole position is comparable to that of the fastest of the GT3 cars. Now, that illustrates just how quick these cars were in period, but now how quick the GT3 cars are in present day.
Well, it's not only the cars that take you back, it's also people that drove them in period, and one of those is down on the grid. Let's join Richard Hay.
Guys, who remembers the Vitaphone Maseratis, classic SRO GT cars? With me, Alex Muller, put the car on pole position here in 2009. Good to be back in this car?
Yeah, it's a very nice memory. 13 years ago at the same racing weekend, I was on pole position, and now again. So yeah, we'll see how the race goes for us. But the memories are so nice, you know. I'm putting these cars back on track after, you know, the car's 16, 17 years old. It's that for I think we're doing pretty good the lap time compared to the modern GT3 cars with traffic and so on. I think we're still competitive with this machine.
Now, I was asking someone earlier on how much one of these cars is worth these days, because you have to be really careful with them. They didn't tell me how much. They said you could buy a small Welsh village with one, which is like quite a lot of houses.
I don't know if this is politically correct or not, but the value is between 4 and 5 million euros for one of these cars. Yeah.
Look after it, won't you?
Yeah, that is exactly that is the point, because I have a mega trust from my teammate and car owner, yeah, and he is. I leave a safety margin on the table, of course, because you know the car is unique. You know, they built 13 cars, 12 are still existing. So if you damage this car, it will be quite hard for everybody. And yeah, we want to have a nice racing weekend. We want to have fun. It's a gentleman racing weekend, and I'm as well in the age with 43, getting more and more the gentleman driver, so we're all happy.
Alex, thank you very much. 13 cars, there's 4 of them on the grid here, guys. 4 of these Maseratis to look at, amazing.
He's one of the great GT cars. Richard Hay, thank you. Better give Richard credit for this. He was third himself here back in 2003 in the British GT race that was part of the 1,000 kilometres that year, so he can speak with authority.
Yes, and he drove his three-wheeler Morgan, I believe, with a Jap or a matchless engine. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to check with Richard which of those 2 motors it was. But a three-wheeler around Spa must have been a real handful, especially through Eau Rouge.
Oh, but he was flat. He was absolutely flat. Alex Muller then will go second in the pole position car. Regulations are that the car owner must start, and that means that in another of these MC12s, Joe Macari will go first, and he's with Richard on the grid.
So, Joe, back in one of these cars, first time since 2007, is that right?
No, I've driven it at Le Mans about 6 weeks ago in Le Mans Classic, and it was just unbelievable. You know, you forgot how good something was until you haven't done it for a long time. But the car's so much better than me, that's actually the realistic fact of life.
Just how special is it? Tell us a little bit about it.
First, when this was born back in 2004, it just had something about it. It was probably the only racing car that was also beautiful. Most cars are, they've got something about them, but this has everything. It looks amazing, it performs amazing, it's beautiful, and it was born a classic. And you know, for me it was a privilege, and I never thought in 2004 I'd ever get my dirty little mitts on one. And now, you know, I've been privileged enough to have this thing here, and I drove one in 2007, and it was like, you know, the only thing that's got changed really is I've got so much slower. You know, I can use a calendar rather than a clock now to time myself. That's the only disappointment.
And you're not doing this on your own, are you? Who are you with?
So I brought my godson, Harrison Newey, because I suddenly realised that being 10 kilos and 15 years on, I was never going to manage an hour without a paramedic. So I thought I'd bring him along and he could do a bit of it and make sure to keep me alive.
Now listen, I know you're not going to tell me how much it's worth, but Alex Muller just did, so look after it, won't you?
Oh, I'll do my very best and I'll just keep it clean. Nice to see you, Richard.
Thank you.
So Joe Macari, who drove one of these in the 2007 Spa 24 Hours, and he was that year partnered by Ben Alcott, along with Philip Pater and Marino Franchitti. They were the drivers of actually the chassis that's in Vitaphone colours, but Joe's car was in the Red Bull colours that one is, if you're still following this.
And of course, the co-driver that Joe Macari was referring to, Harrison Newey, is the son of, well, how can you say about Adrian Newey that has not been said? And Harrison, a young race driver who currently this weekend enjoying something which is more relaxed from his normal day job as a racing driver. And the glorious, I mean, the sun is out, the track temperatures are up, ambient is up. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better day to put on a display of these cars going back through the history, 30 years. Now, Joe Macari's day job actually is selling high-end sports cars and classic cars to the rich and famous, and there he is in one of the nicest cars he could ever choose to have.
And also on this grid, in his ex-period car, is Stefan Ortelli. He's now with Richard.
Guys, we were hoping to have a word with Stefan Ortelli. Can you believe he's bought this car and it's heading to a museum after this right now? They were struggling with the belts. We'll see if we can grab a quick word. Stefan, what's it like to be back in one of these cars?
It's not often that you have this chance, and I have to say, small details remind me so much about my time back in the time with the Audi. So, yeah, it's really nice, and especially here at Spa, it makes sense. I'm very blessed by the potential of the car, and still bloody fast. I really love it, and the grid is just crazy with so many Maseratis on the grid, Aston Martin and Porsches. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be part of this grid today.
Now, they tell me you actually bought this very car. Was this a car that you drove in period as well?
Yeah, it's a car we've been racing 2014 and 2015, winning races. It makes sense to buy a car when you win races with.
Good luck. See if you can do another one today.
Thank you. We will try.
And that's a man that won the Spa 24 Hours himself outright, but from the second class in those days. It was GT and NGT, and it was an NGT car in a very wet race with a clever strategy by Freisinger that won the race. And Stefan Ortelli, also, of course, a Le Mans winner. Great character. Great to have him back on the grid.
I mean, ever-pressible personality and character, and thoroughly enjoys his motor racing. Not currently in GT3 racing, but he's going to have a great day out here today. And watch, because, I mean, at the start of this race, on the second row of the grid alongside Stuart Hall in the Aston Martin, those two drivers are in effect the nearest you'll get to being pro drivers amongst the group of drivers that are going to be in this 1 hour charge around the Ardennes forests and the Spa-Francorchamps.
Well, the start stint has to be done by the owner. Well, Stuart Hall isn't necessarily the owner of the Aston Martin. He's the notional owner because he looks after the Rothko collection, but that's the Gulf car owned by Roel Goethe. Now, sadly, we have lost a few over the course of qualifying with mechanical woes, so it's a smaller entry than hoped, but it's certainly enough to stir the memory banks and to give us quite a spectacle here as the cars are in a moment ready to be released and set off onto the formation lap. The race was meant to be an hour and a lap. It's going to be 55 minutes because some of the cars can't do an hour and a lap on a tank of fuel. So it's 55 minutes. There's a pit window between 25 and 35, and it's 3 minutes, the pit stop, line to line.
That sort of makes sense because, you know, some of the drivers will not be the fittest of racing drivers. So to give them a period to get in and then, or get out, then the second driver get back in and ensure that all the belts are properly attached and the shoulder straps are tightened before the car rolls. No such thing as rolling down the pit lane, 2 hands off the steering wheel, trying to tighten the belt. That'll be a penalty.
Exactly. So, the Vitaphone car on pole position, and what Joe Macari was saying about the MC12 is absolutely right. It was a car that instantly became a classic, and we'll talk more about the Maserati in due course, but for me, the Vitaphone colour scheme is one of the great liveries. There's just something about that turquoise and black that just works. Michael Bartels carried the colours in the DTM and then into GT racing. You'll see also on the third row there, the Vitaphone liveried Aston Martin. Richard Mines owns this car now. It was a Stracker racing car at Le Mans, but Vitaphone had the entry, and then, if you like, leased the entry or sold the entry to Straka. So it was a Vitaphone Racing / Straka Racing entry. And the Aston in those colours looks great as well.
Well, one of the appeals of this grid is that the graphics on these cars of this generation are much more straightforward and uncomplicated than maybe the ones we see on the more contemporary cars. They're basic block colours with a few little stripes or whatever. But that Vitaphone Maserati, that sort of turquoisey green and black, is an iconic, along with things like Golf and other great identifiably recognisable brands.
Well, as I say, we have got quite a few missing from the grid, but there's enough to get us talking, and the cars then now make this run up through Rayon, ready for the starts. They've been on that endurance pits, and it is going to be Yvan Vercuter who will start in the Vitaphone Maserati with Joe Macari alongside. In the second row, Stefano Ortelli in the Audi. Stuart Hall lines up alongside, and then on the third row, Nick Homerson and Richard Mines, soloists and very active race drivers both. On the next row of the grid, you have Raoul Goethe there in the Lamborghini and James Sofranas in the Audi, ahead of the car then that is not there, Jos Menton, but Philip Kadori's Aston Martin is. That American raced car lines up ahead of Mirko Zeiler, and then the next car on the grid is going to be Stefan Reutmeier, not Michael Verveny to go first. Christian Gleisel starts Mark Davis's Porsche, and Franz Wunderlich, the mustard king, mustard magnate, he is next ahead of Eddie Benazet in the GT3 Mercedes, and Maurizio Frati with his Porsche run by the Ortolando team. There's Guy Favre, but missing sadly Jean-Luc Blanchemin, his Viper I didn't see on the grid. And then it is on the next row of the grid, the car of Alexander Linau rather, and Michael Ehrlich is alongside him. There's no Jean-Louis Rion, that car has gone home ill. The Simon Evans Porsche should be there. We miss also Peter Fairbairn's 911 GT2 after problems this morning. Lee Max Page's Porsche had dropped a valve, that's retired, but Paul Phillips is there at the back of the grid. So as I say, sadly, the rigours of running rather complicated cars has taken its toll, but up front, look at that, what a sight.
Well, I can't wait to see the lights go out and the rush down into Eau Rouge and see who actually crests Rayon in the lead. My focus is going to be very much on Stefano Ortelli in the third place Audi, because I just know Stefano Ortelli. He is a pure, true racer, and he is here not to make up the numbers. He's here to win this. It's important for him. The prestige of winning this one-off event is very important indeed.
Now, of course, we knew that Stefan Imperial was a real charger. Bit different when you own the car, isn't it? So when it was Vincent Voss's problem, he would get stuck in. He might be a bit more reserved now.
Well, I don't think you can change your personality and character. And, of course, you've got Steve Hall, Stuart Hall behind in the Aston Martin. I mean, those two will try and seize any opportunity, at the earliest opportunity. And the best chance to do it is if you get a good run through Eau Rouge and Rayon, it will be up the Camel straight and then into the braking zone to go into Les Combes. So keep an eye for that number 3 Audi or the number 5 Aston Martin as two of the early chargers trying to split the front row of the grid.
God, it takes me back, this, I tell you, from previous Spa 24 Hours or Le Mans 24 Hours as well, because quite a few of the cars on this grid have a Le Mans history. 1 or 2 have come from the American Le Mans series. They're not all out of SRO events, but it's a snapshot of those 30 years of GT racing.
One of the things we've been missing is the sound of a V12 naturally aspirated motor. We've got them in the Maserati, we've got them in the Aston Martins, and whatever else down through the field, but certainly those V12s in the Maseratis and the Aston Martins, there's a particular engine note which you never forget when you hear it.
So the cars then now make their way towards the chicane, and the Maserati MC12s, which won FIA GT championships, won FIA GT1 World Championships, and of course won Spa 24 Hours. Normally when Eric van der Poel was brought in as well as the third man. We are about to go racing then. The pace car peels off into the pit lane. The cars accelerate their way up towards the line. The lights go green, and straight on his toes is Stuart Hall in the Gulf Aston on the outside line. 55 minutes of racing, celebrating 30 years of SRO. He's going. James Sofronis right round the outside there. Hang the value of the cars. This is a proper race, and Stefano Ortelli bounces off Philippe Kadori. Well, they've all survived it, but 1 or 2 being a lot more committed than you might have anticipated.
Well, certainly Stuart Hall was on his toes on the way up to the lights going out right behind now. The Maserati up through. Oh, just gentle. Remember, you've got to get your tyres up to temperature. But a bad start, a disappointing start for Stefano Ortelli, but now Stuart Hall looks one way, then the other way, to put the V12 Aston Martin alongside the V12 Maserati classic images coming up into Lecum.
So the Aston Martin goes through on the inside, big cloud of smoke in the background. Let's hope it's not mechanical, but Stuart Hall takes over the lead then from Ivan Verkuter. It's James Safronas in third place. It was Philippe Cadore having a drama in the Aston, so Ortelli gets past him. Richard Mines is right on his tail in his Aston Martin that had dramas in qualifying as well. So right behind them, look, is the very original Maserati MC12, Nick Homerson's car in the factory colours when that car was debuted at the end of 04. James Safronas fancies his chances here of getting second place away from Ivan Verkuter. Down the hill they come, and the Audi looks to the inside line but can't find a way through. Then you've got Joe Macari running in fourth place. That Joe last raced here in 2007 in a Maserati MC12 in these colours, but Stuart Hall is getting away up front then. So it's 005, the Aston Martin from Le Mans in 2008 when Heitz Harald Frentzen, Andrea Piccini and Carl Wendlinger took it to fourth in the GT1 class. That is the leading car right now.
So just keeping an eye on those behind the lead three, and Stefano Ortelli was the one that lost out. He contacted Stefanos in the Aston Martin, just coming out of the exit of La Source.
So there's the Aston, and there is the fight for second and third and fourth then. So you've got Ivan Verkuter just ahead at the moment of James Safronas, but now Joe Macari, as everything starts to get up to temperature, mounts his challenge. So the MC12 on the back of the Audi. Now, of course, that's a GT/GT1 spec car versus a GT3 car. GT3 more modern, but more restricted in what they can do. But Joe Macari is hustling on as they come down to the chicane.
So a big break, and it just is a little bit, let's say, wise not to try and make a lunge down the inside into the chicane, turn 18, then the switch back through turn 19. But initially a comfortable lead from Stuart Hall as he comes across almost 3 seconds ahead of the second place Maserati.
So there is Joe Macari, that car that JMB, Jean-Marie Barèche's team, ran, and it comes then downhill. There were lots of MC12s drivers of the time, because with 4 drivers for Spa on occasions, there were quite a lot that would cycle through. You had JMB, you had Vitaphone, you had the factory in 04, you also had the Serafree play team that ran cars, so quite a few drivers got into them over the course of a given period. But Stuart Hall led at the end of the opening lap by 2.9 seconds. There he is, ahead of Ivan Verkuter. James Safronas third, and up the inside line comes Joe Macari, thinks about it, and then thinks better of it. Stefano Ortelli is in 5th place, and then Philippe Cadore, the Hong Kong driver, in 6th. As Stuart Hall then makes his way down the hill, heading towards Bruxelles. This car out of Roel Goethes' Rofco Gulf collection, and Roel himself is 11th in the Lamborghini Gallardo.
And Stuart Hall, literally by the corner, is just extending the lead. He had 2.9 seconds coming across the start-finish line at the end of lap 1, and already you can see an overtake going round into Speaker's Corner, so that was a brave move. Probably began on the exit of Bruxelles.
In a sense, you've got a fight within this race between Safronas and Ortelli in those very, very similar vintage Audi R8 LMS Ultras from 2014. And Ortelli now is on the back of Macari, so Stefan's feeling a bit more toey, and he makes his move up the inside. Nicely done.
Yeah, and maybe he got a bit unsettled at the start, but he lost out at the start, then had the bump with the Aston at the exit of La Source. Now coming to terms, and he's got his focus on the Maserati, and he will work out very quickly where his strengths lie, and I suspect it's going to be principally here at the exit of the Paul Frere Courbe. Not be into Blanchimont, but it'll be in preparation to try and make a move into turn 18, the first part of the chicane that leads on to start-finish straight.
Now, of course, Ivan Verkuter is doing a decent job in that car, but it's Alex Müller who will get into it on the pit stops that is the quicker of the two. So he needs to try to, for the race purposes, keep it there or thereabouts. And he is coming back at Safronas, isn't he, as they drop into the chicane this time. Ortelli is there in 4th place. Joe Macari will give way, as you heard, pre-race to Harrison Newey. It's going to be quick. But Philippe Cadore has got great pace as well. He's another very versatile historic racer. He's got Richard Mines, who is based in Hong Kong, chasing the other Hong Kong-based driver, Cadore. And right with them is Nick Homerson. There, look, in the factory colours of the Maserati. Those are the colours that the car carried when it was brought into FIA GT at the end of 2004.
Yeah, Joe Macari a little bit slow out of La Source. I don't know whether there was a problem or just he didn't get on the throttle as early as those around, but that's just going to put an even larger gap between him and Ortelli, who's into that 4th position. Ortelli just 0.2 of a second behind the 3rd place Maserati.
Right, Nick Homerson then comes up to have a go at Richard Mines in the newer Aston Martin, but less outlandish in its appearance. The Maserati is a bit of a cross in a way between a Group C and a GT car, and very, very much got tongues wagging when it was introduced. So much so that Stefan Rattel said, well, I want this car in the championship, but I don't want it to kill it. And it was Max Mosley that came up with the idea of restricting it. And he and Peter Wright, effectively, it was round the outside goes Ortelli, effectively, it was the MC12 that triggered what is now the balance of performance, finding a way of restricting car through weight and ride height and rear wing adjustments and whatnot. What we now have as the BOP really originated because of the MC12.
Well, the MC12 was really a pure race car. It was then sort of re-engineered being into what you might just call a bespoke GT car, but it was nothing more than a pure race car. And within the spirit, maybe, but not within the letter, or the letter not the spirit, whichever way around you looked at it, Ortelli has managed to get clear, so he is now in third place, looking to run down the 14, Audi running in second.
Behind all of this is the Stefan Reitmeier, number 86 Porsche, which is the ex-Freisinger car, for whom Stefan Ortelli drove that car, and Stefan Reitmeier hasn't got quite the same grunt as these cars up the road, but he's doing a good job anyway, and is leading his class 9th overall. So the MC12s together, then the Maseratis through. But here we've got the Audi fight I was touching on a little while ago. Stefan Ortelli now certainly more confident to push, isn't he? He's
yes.
taking a lot more now in terms of aggression to James Sofronas.
Well, he looks like the Stefan Ortelli of old. I mean, he was always a risk taker down the inside. The easy pass makes it look easy. In fact, it was a big commitment for Ortelli to make that pass. Had to be spot on where he got on the brakes. He could have overrun the corner and had the second place Audi, now third place, undercut, but Ortelli's made his way up into second place and focused on Libby and Stuart Hall, but Stuart Hall's 11.5 seconds up the road.
Indeed so, and he will give way to Jordan Grogor. It's 3 minutes for the pit stop for everybody, so the time you lose is the time you lose, and we'll see now whether Ortelli can bring down that gap, because really for the first time now he has got clear road ahead of him. Stuart Hall's done the fastest lap, perhaps no surprise, 2 minutes 23. The best lap, which was an average of the best laps of the two sessions, was a 2:16, so we're some way off that at the moment. Don't forget that this car was only the leading car, 4th on the grid, but race pace looking pretty good right now. There's Ortelli, second spot in the first sector. See what he can do this time as he breaks for Lecombe. He is still 6/10 slower than Stuart Hall in the first sector alone. And there, look, side by side, Nick Homerson right round the outside of Richard Mines, and the Maserati spins, and around goes Homerson, and off in avoidance goes Richard Mines. And dollars and pounds and euro signs flash before their eyes as Richard Mines gets it back onto the circuit and loses out to Stefan Reitmeier, but that was very close.
Yes, it was. The Maserati went one way, then they got the tank slapper. Unfortunately for Mines and the Aston Martin, he was in the wrong place and had to go wide, and of course that lost him position. But it's inevitable. You get two cars close together, and the grip level is you got it, you got it, you got it, and then it seemingly is gone before you can even respond.
So downhill goes Richard Mines, who survived all of that. Nick Homerson, one hopes, will have got going. Here's the replay, John.
So side by side in, so the Aston has got the high ground, one might say, but Maserati tries to go around the outside. There is a light contact, the Maserati spins. Aston's got to go way, way wide off the racetrack into the gravel, but enough momentum to enable it not to get bogged down in this newly laid gravel around Spa-Francorchamps.
So there is then Ivan Vercouter, who is doing a decent enough job, actually. Philippe Cadori is impressive. He came really into modern style racing with Dan Wells' tutelage in Lamborghini Super Trofeo. He's got some nice AC Cobras that he races in historics, and going well in that car. Yellow flag at turn 9, as there is Stuart Hall. He is the race leader then. So with the first 10 minutes done and 10 to go before the window opens, Stuart Hall, who has just done the fastest lap of the race as well, the 2:22.982, he leads the way. There's second, that's Stefan Ortelli. And then look back for third place. There it is, James Sofronas as being pushed away. Is that the Nick Homerson Maserati? I fear it is, because it never got to the end of the second sector. So we've lost the MC12, but there you've got second and third. The Audi's going through. I wonder whether Nick Homerson had more than just a spin, whether it was an issue that caused the spin, because I would have thought he could have rejoined.
Well, certainly there was contact before the spin, and I assume that contact was what led to the spin, but it may have been that there was an issue which we haven't seen. Certainly a car has been pushed behind the barrier down at what's now Jackie Eakes curve or Jackie Eakes corner. So there is Joe Macari And I've got great respect for Joe Macari, because the last time I saw him was about a month ago or 6 weeks ago at Goodwood, when he was telling everybody who would listen the latest stock in his stock of high-end classic cars.
Well, he's certainly come on a long way from the days of the Toyo Tires Super Road Saloon, in which he raced a Colt Lancer Turbo, or Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo, in the late 80s. But yeah, it was in a rather nasty road accident a good few years ago, but he's come back to racing and as enthusiastic as ever. And when Harry Newey gets into that car, it's going to be really interesting to watch, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, Harrison is a very, very quick young driver. He's been racing, or had been racing in LMP2. I don't know what he's been doing this year, but I know he took his dad's McLaren, whichever incident, up to Donington on a supercar day up there and was screaming around. Somebody did say that he had set the fastest single lap around what might be called the natural circuit. Yeah. So I mean, it sounded fantastic, a proper V10 aspirated engine.
Yes, it was a Kimi Raikkonen chassis, that first time it had run since the end of that Formula One season. And yeah, watching, because I was there that day, watching Harrison Newey in it was quite something. There is Ivan Verkuter, who's dropping away slightly now into the clutches of Philippe Kaduri. And there is Roel Goethe in the ELMS Lamborghini Gallardo. The road, that's the FIA GT1 World Championship AMR, the Aston Martin Racing Young Driver car, which I'm told was a spare chassis rather than one that was a regular race car. It was a spare. It is owned and raced now by the mustard magnate Frans Wunderlich, and as he comes through, he's got the Christian Glezel driven Mark Davis Porsche tucked up behind him. And then it is Roel Goethe in 12th place as the cars now make the run down towards the chicane. The Chevrolet Corvette there from the German Championship, that is Mirko Zeiler, whose dad used to race GT cars, Tony Zeiler, comes up through the chicane. So there's lots of variety on this grid.
Yeah, it's good to see a Chevrolet, because they were a very big part of racing in this period, along with the Dodge Vipers, two massive 3.8 in the case of the Corvette and a V10 in the case of the Viper. It's up under braking into La Source. So a comfortable gap between 9th and 10th position. The gap at the front now stabilized fractionally, still extending but not at the same rate. Ortelli trying to peg back that advantage that Stuart Hall built up really in those opening 3 or 4 laps.
The incident between Richard Mines and Nick Homerson is being looked at by Race Control, incidentally, as there Roel Goethe makes the run down the hill. The Lamborghini catching the Porsche, Christian Glezel at the wheel of the 996 shape 911. There it is, but it's an older car than is the Lamborghini. But actually Christian Glezel, who's a very, very successful historic racer, whether it's been in 1980s Formula One cars or 1960s sports cars and everything in between, you name it, he's won in it. Christian Glezel sharing with the Belgian race car dealer Mark Davis, goes up towards Les Combes now. So let's head to the pit lane. Richard Hayes down there.
Guys, Michael Soven is with me here now. He's got one of the cars that I really like. I think Watty would too. It's a Porsche. And this car actually came 4th here. Now, Michael, tell me about the car.
It's a 2004 semi-works car, ex-Freisinger squad. They won the World Championship as a team with one of the 3 cars, and it's still original. And it's the same livery as it ran 2004. It was actually a team sponsored by Yukos Oil of Russia, of the famous Michael Khodorkovsky, who Mr. Putin put in jail in Siberia for 12 years because he said he's going to run for president. So it's a pretty historic car.
I'm probably not going to go there with a political thing, but you were the quickest car, I think, around here in your class, is that right?
Yeah, my co-driver is bloody quick, much faster than me.
I'm sure you'll do a great job. Good luck. You're going to go in the car, I think, 2 or 3 laps?
He's going to be coming in about, what is that, 9 minutes.
Better let you go then.
Yeah?
Thanks. Take care.
Very much.
Cheers.
So Michael Ferveny with one of these 2 Yukos Freisinger run cars, which from Le Mans in 04, the car that he owns is the one that Stefan Ortelli, Ralph Canonas and Romain Dumas took 13th overall with. And the other one was Robert Nern, Nikolai Fomenko and Alexander Siliev that crashed out, but it was the Ortelli Canonas Dumas car that was the quicker of the 2. We'll have a look at that car in due course, because it is a very rapid one indeed in the hands of, as you've been hearing, Stefan Rockmeyer. Now there is Joe Macari being caught, I reckon, by Ivan Verkuter. Has Joe got a problem?
Well, I noticed a few laps ago he didn't appear to be as quick out of La Source. That's only one corner, and it's the slowest corner essentially on the racetrack. So whether Joe is finding it's... But we've been in this race 20 minutes. It's a very, very warm day. These cars fully enclosed, so they're not necessarily going to get the benefit of the airflow that a more modern car might have. I don't know. Maybe he's got a car problem rather than maybe suggesting that it might be down to the man behind the wheel.
Well, pace has quickened a little bit. Now, here's another example of Aston Martins of the time, number 7, which is the very spectacularly liveried car. This has got at the wheel of it Alex Linau. Stefan Joche will take over. That's a car that raced in the FIA GT Cup at Macau in the hands of Darrell O'Young, the Hong Kong Canadian driver. And you can tell it's come out of the Asian market because of the really bright, spectacular livery that cars of that market tend to have. It's Guy Fauvet behind him in the Ferrari. And you can see there how the Aston Martin pulls massively away. And whoops, gets the line all wrong for Eau Rouge and totters off the road.
It's almost follow my leader because the momentum by the Aston totally given up, got out of the throttle there and allowed the Ferrari a clean, quick, clear run through on the run up to Les Combes. So Aston may well have still more top line advantage, trying to get back at the Ferrari, but not close enough to make a move down the inside, and wisely decides to wait. He'll have another lap to do this. We're only, what, coming up to 23 minutes or so into this race.
So there you've got number 7 through, having lost that place. Alexander Linau drops back, Stefan Joche to take over the car. We're only a lap or 2 away, really, from a number of them making that run into the pit lane, 25 to 35 minutes, and it's a 55-minute race now. Now, Harry Newey is about to get on board number 46, and Joe McCarry will hand over to him. Harry is with Richard Hay.
Now, Harrison, famous name, godfather, but also famous racing driver, really, in Grand Right, pretty good. You've only done 4 laps in this car, is that right?
Yeah, I did 2 flying laps yesterday, and then 2 flying laps in practice today, and now the race. Never driven it before, so...
Come on, what's it like?
It's amazing. I mean, look, I grew up watching these cars. DBR9s, MC12s they were the cars I had as models when I was growing up, so for most of these guys, they're not that old, but for me, you know, they're my real classics and where my heart lies, so to drive them is amazing.
They just look and sound right somehow, don't they?
They sound, I mean, listen to them, they sound amazing.
Listen, I've got to let you go because I know they just told you to put your helmet on.
Thank you. Have a good one. Cheers, guys.
And it's the right circuit for them, Richard, as well, isn't it? I mean, you say that they sound right, they do, they look right, but you know, GT racing and Spa have become so synonymous with one another. It is exactly the right place to have a race like this. I know other venues try to have a sort of GT90s style race, but there's just something about Spa in these cars that works.
Well, I suppose you might say the equivalent of here in Spa. We're now running down into the middle of the valley, and on either side of the valley is the upward leg, and then you come up through Blanchemont. And it's a bit like taking one of these cars and going through a mile-long tunnel, putting your windows down, dropping down 3 or 4 gears, and nailing it just to listen to the sound bouncing off the walls or bouncing off the trees.
You're right, you're right. Now there, we heard from the owner, Michael Furveny, Stefan Rottmeier at the wheel of the Yukos Freisinger Porsche in its Le Mans colours. Stefan Rottmeier behind the wheel of the Porsche, which is the 996 shape 911. You can see it's Le Mans number panels on the side of it. The Freisinger team was, well, I mentioned earlier, won the Spa 24 Hours outright in a 996 style 911. Very, very successful team. These days, you don't see very much of Freisinger racing, occasionally at historic meetings, but very, very big Porsche restoration and preparer in Germany.
Absolutely, and if you want an item for a sort of early 60s or even late 50s Porsche, Freisinger are one of the few places in the world where you can call up and they most likely will have, if not an original factory part, a replica part that will do the same sort of job.
I just saw in the background Nick Homerson stalking out of the garage out of the race, sad to say, as the pit window is imminent. So the owners, where they can, will try and come in at the earliest opportunity to put the so-called guns for hire, the pros, into the car. There, number 99 Porsche, very, very spectacularly coloured car because it's out of the American Le Mans series. It was the Kelly Moss Motorsport team car that more recently than most, David Murray, Anthony Lazzaro and actually Vincenzo Sospiri drove. Vincenzo now very much part of the Lamborghini stable, running cars in Super Trofeo and in GT3, but he drove this Porsche, and then it retired from Sebring, but the half shaft failed, and Noel Del Bello bought it to Racing Europe.
We got a glimpse of the 23 Porsche, the latest incarnation of a 911 family. When you see that car, it looks minute.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean,
Yeah.
how much the contemporary cars have grown as Stuart Hall puts a lap on it. Gap between Stuart Hall and Ortelli has been pegged at 12.5 seconds now. That's probably Stuart Hall just basing what he needs to do on the gap between himself and Ortelli. But Ortelli has had the fastest race lap now has gone to Stefano Ortelli.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, he's really pushing on, and it was last time around that he did it. There, the Porsche of Simon Evans then goes through. That car looked after by JRT, the Jordan Racing Team stable of Mike and son Andrew Jordan, and indeed Mike's other son Bradley, who's here engineering the car, and up through Blanchimont it comes. So towards the end of the lap, the Porsche through, and down in the pit lane, drivers now prepare to jump on board. So the pit window is open, and Stuart Hall here arrives on the tail of Alexander Linau, and he's going to put a lap on him, which means that that's the car in 17th place that he's lapped. Goes through. Guy Fauvet up the road.
Yeah, Stuart Hall was a little bit circumspect and waiting to find a way past the sister Aston. Wasn't quite sure which part of the entry into turn 18, 19 he was going to go, so just backed off a little bit. The sensible thing to do, no need to put a less experienced driver under pressure and potentially options of getting together. So maybe, well, in fact, the gap between first and second is now down to 11.2 seconds, so there's quite a lot of time lost by Stuart Hall just being cautious.
And that, I'm afraid to say, is the car from pole position that's got a problem. Ivan Vercouter has pulled off. He's out on the outside of Blanchimont, but that is a real shame, because the Vitaphone run Maserati MC12 with Michael Bartels and all the period engineers, period clothing and whatnot, it's all here, and sadly the car that was on pole position has come to a halt. Now, can it be restarted and brought to the pit lane? If it's stationary there, I would rather fear that it might end up being an interruption to the race. Let's have a look. Is that a tyre?
It's hard to tell. It's certainly a bit of the dust was kicked up by going on. It's hard to tell. The car looks like it's more mechanical than it is a tyre. But what a great shame, because I'd love to have seen Muller get in behind the wheel. Oh. Well, that's the Aston.
It is. It's not a good lap for Vitaphone cars all of a sudden, is it? Richard Mines parks it. Now, he had a problem in qualifying and parked at the top of Eau Rouge. And where's he parked this time? He's out of the race, that's for sure.
Is that coming out of the middle of La Source?
You might be right, John. Absolutely, good spot. So it is at turn 1, La Source, that Richard Mines is out. So that's both the Vitaphone cars done. Into the pit lane now comes the Paul Phillips 911, I think that is. Number 70. Inveterate Porsche enthusiast. Down the pit road comes number 70 then, and already in fact, is the Mercedes of Eddie Benazet. So it's 3 minutes from the pit in line to the pit out line. And everybody must serve a stop. So keeping the cars going is key to all of this, and Stefano Ortelli is going absolutely flat out.
Now, he is now 100% race driver. A little bit cautious in the opening couple of laps, but now you can see the old Ortelli style is back, and he just leaves nothing on the table. And what a great star he was for so many years for WRT in the Audi.
Won Le Mans, won the Spa 24 Hours, won Porsche Super Cup, won innumerable GT races. You're right, he was a very good servant for Audi and Porsche. Prior to that, of course, it was with Porsche that he won at Le Mans, along with Laurent Aiello and Alan McNish. Big slide under braking there from the Porsche in the hands of Simon Evans coming into La Source. He's got James Sofronas behind him in the car that's third overall, the Audi. Stars and Stripes roofed Audi that charges past going down the hill. So the pit stop cycle through, and no further action in that incident between Mines and Homerson, both of whom are out of the race now, sadly. And that's the Paul Phillips Porsche going through the mandatory stop. Screen cleared. Eddie Benazet in the pits, as in behind him comes the ProDrive built Aston Martin, the DBR9, which is the car that Philippe Cadori drives. It's the one that Dario Franchitti drove last year at Le Mans, I understand, that particular chassis. As down the hill now comes Stefano Ortelli. 7.5 seconds back from Stuart Hall, who is in the pit lane. Stuart's in.
Yeah, so Ortelli is going to stay out, I think, for the full duration, but Stuart Hall has come in. So our race leader is now Stefano Ortelli.
To the piff paff he comes then, into the right and the left. So this has got to be a kind of dummy qualifying lap, hasn't it, to try to bring that gap down in real terms to Jordan Grogor, the Dubai-based South African, who's going to take over the Rothgo Aston.
I mean, I just love watching Otelli. I've always enjoyed watching him drive, and you can see he uses every inch of the racetrack that's available to him as they. Well, we go back between the Lamborghini and the Audi up the hill, but Otelli into Blanchimont, green flag being shown. I don't know whether there had been previously a yellow there, but now certainly a green flag being shown.
That's where the Maserati stopped, wasn't it? On the outside of the corner.
Was it?
So I think that's why we had the yellow at turn 16 and the green on the exit of it as Otelli goes on for another lap. And that's Richard Mines in replay who's got going again. Whoops, right ahead of Roel Goethe. So Richard Mines has rejoined the race and Roel Goethe has to take very evasive action there.
I don't know why he chose to go to the left, because he could have maybe momentarily backed off and gone to the right and stayed on the racetrack. He wouldn't have really lost anything, and just the trouble going out to the left, you get yourself into problems. There's the Aston Martin returning to the racetrack, just watches the Lamborghini comes into view, overruns the back of the Aston, whereas there it is now. So why not just pull back to the right and go down the inside rather than making your life a little bit more difficult and going across the gravel?
That's Philip Kaduri in the works colours. Peter Cox and Darren Turner and David Brabham, amongst others, drove these cars in FIA GT, and then of course at Le Mans to win the class. Down the pit road comes the next to the 911s, 77 that one, which comes to serve its stop of the Swiss driver Michael Ehrlich, the 997 GT3 RSR. That's Stefan Ortelli. A car that he did race, of course, and win with, but it was also shared by Frank Stippler and the Monegasque Stefan Riquelme.
Frank Stippler, he was out the other day, I saw, in I think a Maserati 250F, or maybe a Ferrari of some description. Just a man, a racing driver for all forms of motor racing, and a great driver too.
Mega enthusiast, wasn't he, Frank Stippler? Yeah. And still go back to the year he won here for Audi, when he did virtually all of Sunday on his own. I mean, he, give or take an hour, but he drove the bulk of it, was absolutely worn out at the end of it, but it was just a mega stint. That's the Paul Phillips Porsche that has gone back out, and Stuart Hall has vacated the leading car. That means that he's now got time to talk to Richard Hay.
Stuart, you just jumped out of that car, nice big lead. The main thing, the first thing you said to me, I grew up watching these cars, I love these cars. Harrison Newey said the same thing. What's it like?
I know, it's really cool, you know. I joined Aston Martin as that car sort of started to phase out, so I never really got to drive it back in anger back in the day. So it's a beautiful car to drive. Unfortunately, we're in Le Mans Aero and everything for this weekend because we don't have a high downforce kit, so a bit difficult against the Maserati prototypes, but you know, we're having a lot of fun. It's a gorgeous bit of kit to drive, and yeah, we were leading the race, so it's good fun.
It's nice as well, not just some legendary cars. What if you let two legendary drivers as well, like Stefan Ortelli?
Yeah, no, it's good. You know, I've grew up watching Stefan, raced against Stefan, and now we're coaching two of the guys at WRT in the main race. So yeah, you know, it's a great grid. I hope they do more of this. You know, more of this racing alongside the GT World Challenge. You know, it's nice to come in. I'm obviously here for Benji in WRT, but to do a little bit of driving this weekend in such a beautiful car is a bonus.
Of all of these Golf cars, you just get to drive quite a few of them. Which is your favourite of the Golf cars?
That's like picking my favourite child.
Come on.
No, I mean, probably the GTE that we won the World Championship in. That's now in the collection. You know, that the R9 is one of the favourites. Although to drive, it's a bit of a beast to drive. Or the prototype, the old V12 Aston Martin, because that's what I got my shot in back when I was a bit of a whippersnapper. I've got a few more grey hairs now, but you know, those three probably are the really iconic ones that I love. You know, getting in, and you know, I've got a grin from ear to ear, so beautiful.
It's not a bad job, is it really?
No, someone's got to do it, haven't they? and just pick me.
Well done, thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, the Lola Aston Martin wasn't the best of prototype LMP1 cars, but it did, as Stuart Hall rightly said, give him his shot with Aston Martin. And interesting that he says about growing up with these, and these were hese favourite cars, because his father was a massive sponsor and supporter of Andy Rouse in touring cars. So I think technically, Stuart, you were meant to talk about an ICS back Sierra at some point. But anyway, these are great cars.
Yeah, but what I really enjoyed about that interview was Stuart Hall. First thing almost is, well, we don't have the downforce, it's got a Le Mans downforce.
exactly.
So, I mean, this is meant to be a bit of fun for the owner drivers and those that are assisting. Yeah. But immediately Stuart says, "Oh, well, give us the downforce, we'd blow those MC12s out of the water."
And he calls them prototypes as well. A bit of a dig as well about that.
Yes.
Harry Newey gets in to the Joe Macari-owned and Vitaphone Racing run Maserati, and the team overseeing this. They started with 3, they're down to 1, so that car now is upholding honour. There is the Roll Goethe Lamborghini, a car that he raced, of course, when it was new in the ELMS with Jordan Grogor, who's now in the Aston, and Fred Fatien, the man behind the GPX squad in the 24 Hours.
Remember pit lane speed limits, gentlemen.
So that car goes down the pit road, trips the beam. Stefan Ortelli is in the pits as well, and also Mark Davis, taking over from Christian Glazel, is in.
So the long climb from the pit lane exit to this end of the pit lane where it blends into at the top of Radion. And always it's a controversial part of the circuit. You get a car on the flying lap and a car exiting the pits, but going as hard as it can do. There's the Ortelli Audi now.
I was half expecting Vincent Voss to oversee that pit stop, but it's not a WRT run car.
I think Vincent's looking down the road 24 hours.
Well, we did have one of his cars in the entry. In fact, it's the Viper that didn't start the race, unfortunately. Now, this is yet to stop, hasn't it? James Safronas? No, he has pitted. He is good. So we'll now get the battle between him and Ortelli carrying on between those two Audis. But Stefan will be ahead. He's already made the climb up through Radion. 22.5 minutes to go of our first trip down memory lane this weekend. Wonderful shot, that, of the cars going through Eau Rouge, up Radion, off the Kemmel Straight. There's Stefan Ortelli, so yeah, he's cleared James Safronas very definitely. And now we'll see their pace relative to Jordan Grogor in the Aston Martin.
You've got a feeling that, particularly these two that are doing this sort of solo effort, they've got the momentum. They've done the first 25, 35 minutes. They're up to speed. They know what's going to happen. And it's much easier to do that as a driver than doing a driver swap. So the car that dominated the Aston, the number 5 Aston Martin, it'll be interesting to see what it can do in response. But I suspect that Ortelli is up and gone.
Well, we'll look at the order at the end of the next lap, because as pit stops are cycling through, so the order is shuffling. You've also got Harrison Newey then, who's just left the pit lane, and we'll see what the gap is come the end of the lap. Now there is Jordan Grogor in 005 Aston, so that car should still be in the lead, should it not, over Stefan Ortelli. Ortelli will be second, Safronas will be third, and then I'd offer you Harry Newey to be in 4th place. So Jordan Grogor coming towards the end of a lap here. This is going to be the end of lap 13, and he comes down towards the chicane. 21 minutes are on the clock.
So the gap before first and second made their respective pit stops was around about 12.5 seconds.
So
looks more than that.
Yeah. Over the timing line now goes Jordan Grogor, so he has done 13 laps, and this is the 2nd place car of Stefan Ortelli, which comes out of the chicane up towards the timing line now, goes through, and Stefan's starting point is 13.4 seconds.
So they've lost about a second and a bit to the Aston Martin.
And then in 3rd place it's going to be Harry Newey. No, it's not. It's going to be James Safronas, I'll tell you a lie, and then it'll be Harry Newey. The last warning is being given to Guy Fauver in the Ferrari for track limit offences. Right, there's the leader in the Gulf Aston coming up behind the AMR young driver car. So you've got a Le Mans Aston behind a GT1 World Championship spec car.
But remember, that Gulf-sponsored car's got its Le Mans aero setup on it.
Yes.
So it's not actually set up for this circuit specifically. You never must forget all those little details.
This is absolutely true. He can't take on the Maserati prototypes, you know, like that.
What's happened?
That's Jordan Grogor off the road. Is that at Bruxelles?
It is.
and he gets it going again, but he's had a big drama under braking.
Yep, he has. He's got sideways, come to a standstill, and that will be music, if not more, to the head and ears of Stefano Ortelli, 13.4 seconds behind prior to that little moment.
Oh, there he is in the background, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right, this is game on, isn't it? And here's the replay. So he was in traffic. Jordan Grogor came up on the inside and just locked it up on a braking. And
The rear brake, I think maybe one wheel snatched more than the two wheels braking evenly, but once it went round, luckily there wasn't contact between those two cars. But now Ortelli has got very much the Aston Martin number 5 in its sights.
Now, Joe Macari has done his stint in the Red Bull liveried car. But let's hear his thoughts at the end of that activity with Richard.
So, Joe Macari, tell me, what was it like? Was it how you remember it?
Yeah, it was scary and fast, exactly as I remember it. Actually, I don't think I remembered it being that scary, and it's certainly getting scarier every lap. The car's amazing, but the track is just brutally fast and unforgiving, and you've just got to remember to sort of, you've got to make friends with it all over again. And I just started towards the end, and I found a bit of rhythm, but it took a little bit of while, especially when you've got mirror full of other cars and something in front, and you're trying to still learn your way around. But it was great. It was really
well done. Thank you very much. We get back to the action.
Fantastic.
Well, right now, the action is for the race lead, because there, after his spin, is Jordan Grogor just ahead of Stefano Ortelli, and that gap half a second as they came across the line. Jordan's going to have to drive out of his skin here to keep Ortelli at bay, but Stefano oversteps the curb a little bit and puts a wheel into the dirt.
Yeah, a little bit keen to get on the throttle, but down the hill into Rouge, two cars directly ahead of these two lead cars, so they may well come into play either up at the top of Camel Straight or certainly on the run down through Pouhon. And that's going to be Ortelli's great hope, that he can maybe, if he can't find a clean, quick way past Grogor in the Aston Martin, at least he'll have an opportunity with traffic. Already the Aston pulling over to the right to make sure that let me get through without any interference. Porsche, well, almost got out of the way, but couldn't do much more than he did. So once again, Ortelli on the tail, and watch what happened one lap ago. The Aston got sideways under brakes going into Bruxelles. Doesn't need to repeat that.
And Ortelli right there behind him, darts one side and then the other, and carves his way between the two. Fantastic!
Split the two cars, clean as a knife through butter.
Brilliant, brilliant. Who says that historic racing isn't proper racing? Stefano Ortelli straight through between the lead car and a back marker. Brilliant move, absolutely outstanding. Here it is again. He didn't have to do that, he could have waited. He has 17 minutes, but no, straight through the gap, and it's only just a gap.
It's just enough. He got through, he read it extremely well. I don't know whether he knew that was going to occur or just it was fortuitous, but he saw it, read it, and executed all in the space of about a second or less.
Now we've got cars being investigated for pit stop infringements, one of which has got a 30-second penalty, but it's not been communicated which car, which isn't very helpful. It just says time penalty, 30-second pit stop infringement. Well, to whom, please? But there you've got the race leader now, Stefano Ortelli, coming through. And Jordan Grogor is trying to fight back, but I think Jordan is going to have to settle for second place here.
I would say that's most likely, but very well, Porsche, is that a puncture or a lot of smoke coming from the rear?
Yeah.
And is that more than smoke? Is that vapor and oil, and it's getting worse and worse? But normally you get that when you get a tire rub, but I can't see. It appears to be coming from that left corner, but whether it's fluid on the exhaust system or whether it's a tire rub, I don't know, he's shut the engine down or not.
Well, that is Paul Phillips, who's going to have to park it. Number 115 in the meantime, which is the Mark Davis Christian Glezel Porsche, is being given a one-lap penalty for a pit stop infringement.
There's something that was flailing around on the inside of the wheel.
Yeah.
There's a bit of rubber you can see just coming to a stop on a piece of rubber. So whether that's, but what's interesting to me is while all this is going on the screen, Harrison Newey is setting fastest sector times on sector times, and that car has now set the fastest race lap, 2 minutes 20. So he is charging like mad now. He's 16 seconds behind the third place so far as Audi, but at the pace he's going, he's taking 4 to 5 seconds a lap out of the third place Audi. He'll claw that back, and we've got, what, 15 minutes of this race remaining?
Absolutely so. Richard Mines Aston, by the way, has stopped again at the foot of the hill, and Harry Newey now is going to be very, very rapid indeed, because he's done the fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 20.827. And here he comes then up towards the Les Combes sequence of corners once more. So there's a yellow flag, of course, now with the demise, as we've just seen, of the Porsche down at Bruxelles. But Harrison Newey accelerates on this lap. He is quicker in the first sector than almost everybody, except actually Jordan Grogor, who is upping his pace once more. That's the reason for the yellow flag. Paul Phillips has parked it out of harm's way. 14 minutes remain. It's a real shame that we've had this mortality rate for the cars. I said earlier on, they're complicated beasts, but it's a real shame that we've had a few drop out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these cars are used sparingly. And this is a competitive event. It's a prestige event, and those owners and guest drivers are probably using the car to its maximum. You can't take cars that are of this age out of semi-retirement, let's put it that way, and then expect them to be race prepared. If you want to go down that route of race preparing, then the budgets go out of all proportion.
There is Ortelli diving past Goethe, too late on the brakes, and goes wide. So Stefan is getting ever more committed. You said at the start he was taking it gently and feeling his way in. Well, he might have been, but he's certainly now throwing caution to the wind. Yeah,
but he was only 1.1 seconds. You can see the Aston in second place coming across the line. It's over that now. It'll be 2.7 seconds. But Ortelli cannot afford, having driven a virtually peerless race to date, to fall into the trap of almost but not quite, and then just overrunning as he did into the chicane.
This grid put together by Peter Auto, Patrick Peters' company. Patrick, one of those founding fathers of BPR, with Jürgen Barth and Stefan Rattel. Goethe this time is the one that goes off the road, and Ortelli gets back ahead of him, so he puts the lap on him. 2.7 seconds is what he said, the gap between Ortelli and there in the background, Jordan Grogor. And Roel Goethe doesn't want to be a lap down on Stefan Ortelli. Look, he's trying to unlap himself, and Stefan suddenly is in a battle with a Gulf car, and Jordan Grogor catching up. So it's game on here.
Potentially, certainly it is. And eventually, what's the Porsche doing? That's just going into Les Combes. Ortelli needs to be aware that 2.7 second advantage over Grogor is something that he can't relax about, because with traffic around, you do need to give a margin of safety when you're coming up against a car, particularly if it's a driver that's not necessarily at the level that Stefan Ortelli is.
46, then Harry Newey goes through. Accelerates down the hill, down towards Bruxelles, where that yellow flag is still shown, and Harrison Newey is 27 seconds off the lead. He is catching. He's going to get third off James Sofronas because he is lapping about 5 seconds a lap quicker. So in the time remaining, he'll get third, that's for sure, but I don't think he's going to get up with the race leaders unless there's real drama for them. That is Maurizio Frati's Porsche, another ELMS car that the Autolando Sport team ran. And we've got the Corvette, I'm afraid, trickling past our window on the pit straight. So full course yellow is called for. And there is the reason it was trickling past, because the full course yellow had just been shown. So it's not necessarily a problem. And the full course yellow is so that we can get the Porsche out of harm's way down at Bruxelles.
Yes, it's sitting on for the access, the tarmac, just ahead of the gravelers who go into Bruxelles. It's in a part of the racetrack, or they run off, certainly, that you don't want to have a stationary car. Another car could go off at the same part of the racetrack, have a collision, and it would be unnecessary, so get that car removed. It's in an easy place to remove it. It can be put behind one of the access points around the circuit. And with, what, 10 minutes of this race remaining, well, let's say we might have 5 minutes at least of the race to run under green flag conditions.
Sure. So that is what we've got to look forward to then, as the cars here come through Blanchimont. So everybody at this reduced pace, the full course yellow lights flash, and Stefan Ortelli versus Jordan Grogor. This doesn't necessarily help Harry Newey, does it? Because it gives him less racing laps to bring down that gap against James Sofronas.
No, that's basically taken away, I think, any opportunity of Newey getting up into a podium position. Safety car will be, well, the full course yellow certainly will be, I think, for, well, another couple of minutes until they get that car cleared. Whether they do a safety car deployment or not, or just let them go again once the track is clear.
So there is then Jordan Grogor. who's done quite a bit of historic racing through Royal Goethe stable. And the Corvette, Mirko Zeiler at the wheel. That car is to be found 6th. Behind, you've got Simon Evans in 15th, and number 7, which is now Stefan Joche, and that car is 16th. So the Porsche and the Aston there, that's a genuine battle for position. The Corvette is a lap up on them, but the two behind are having a fight for a place. Interrupted by this FCY, obviously, but they are fighting for
it's interesting, the Corvette's got its safety hazard warning lights on them, and how often do you see hazard warning lights on a race car being activated? Well, they work on the Corvette, that's for sure.
Let's see people use them on the road often enough. Never mind a race car, you're right. So out of the Les Combes sequence, they turn. I do like the livery. You can tell it's an ALMS car, can't you, on Simon Evans' Porsche? The Kelly Moss Motorsport car down to Bruxelles. Hazard lights on the Aston, they're in the background. Now, Jordan Grogor has also managed to clear Le Patron. He got ahead of Royal Goethe, but still has a lot of time to make up relative to Stefan Ortelli.
Well, that gap appears to have gone up. I mean, it was 2.7 seconds. It's not, for some reason, it's now 4.8 seconds. And the purpose of a full course yellow is everybody has a delta time to stick to, so nobody should gain or lose.
So as the field trickles up to Les Combes, there is Frans Wunderlich in the Aston. Behind is James Sofronas, and then Harrison Newey almost within striking distance, but he's just running out of time within the race.
But the pace that Newey has had, vis-a-vis those that are around him, is 8.1 seconds behind. We've got 8 minutes, just under 8 minutes now, of this race remaining. I mean, he can take 2 or 3 seconds a lap out of the Audi in 3rd place, but will that be sufficient to run it down and at least challenge for that final podium slot?
Let's find out then as the cars come through. We need to have a look at how the clear-up operation is going as well. The race director will be doing just that. And here at Pouhon is Stefan Ortelli. There's the 2nd placed Aston Martin of Jordan Grogor. The good news is he doesn't have to clear any traffic. He can just nail his foot to the boards and go after the race leader. So that Aston Martin, 16th it finished at Le Mans back in 2008. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, whose F1 career had come to an end by then. Andrea Piccini, who's now, of course, one of the men behind Iron Lynx. And Carl Wendlinger were the drivers, and it was 4th in the GT1 class. So, actually, Stefan Ortelli is the man that might have the problem on the restart, because, look, he's got traffic ahead of him.
He does, but I think the experience and the pace that Ortelli has, he'll pick his way through those cars relatively, I think, quickly and cleanly. But having said that, Stefan Ortelli has been known to have a rush of the blood to the head at inopportune times. Let's hope this isn't one of those.
So as the cars head into Pouhon, we've got only 6 minutes and 40 seconds, as you can see, on the clock. So not many racing laps still to run. Michael Ehrlich goes through, number 77 Porsche, which is another of those cars from the 997 generation of them, back to 2007. James Sofronas, Aston Audi, it's been a long day, goes through the piff-paff, up behind the Aston of Frans Wunderlich. And still we await a green flag. Do we get one? Because Sofronas has just gone storming past the Aston. Yes, now we go green. So I think he saw it nice and early.
Anticipated it, maybe. Whatever, it's gone green, so we're back at the races. And I wonder just what Ortelli will do, and I wonder what Newey, because those are the 2 drivers in the top 4 that are going to make something. And there you can see Ortelli now coming through the chicane. The Aston Martin, well, it'll be about 2 and a bit seconds. For some reason the gap had drifted up to 4.8. I don't understand why. So wait and see what it is as they come across the line this time.
It is going to be 1.9 seconds then, so we've got time for 2 laps, maybe 3. Jordan Grogor still has a chance here.
Well, I think Newey would like 3 laps, because that's going to enhance his opportunities to get up into 3rd position. I think Stefan Ortelli would prefer it to be 2.
Down through the plunge, Adamo Rouge they come. Then there is Stefan Ortelli, race leader. He's on the lights again to warn Mirko Zeiler of his progress. And behind him, The charging Jordan Grosjean comes then now into Lecombe. Let's have a look at what the gap is going to be in the sectors then as they get to that timing point. Grosjean is the quicker by 0.3 of a second, so he is closing.
And of course, Ortelli's got to find his way around the Corvette. He'll have a dive down the inside into Bruxelles there. He begins the move. Can he get alongside the Corvette? It does, conceded. Well, it sort of maybe thought about it, but backed off and gave room. Consequently, runs himself a little bit wide. But now the problem goes back to the second place Aston Martin. Ortelli has cleared, and he's got now effectively clear road to the finish.
He has, and he's going to try and up his pace, of course. So everything back up to temperature. Jordan Grosjean, but for that spin, could have been a very, very different story, couldn't it?
Yes, and that was a costly mistake. Just hard on the brake, but it looked to me that the right rear brake was the one that locked, and that's what made the car go into that very immediate and very aggressive spin. And he got it gathered up together, but of course the damage was done and the momentum had gone back to Stefan Ortelli.
So there is the Ortelli Audi, which is going to come out of the Cours Paul Frere now for the 19th time of asking. Stefan up the curb. He's noticed some changes to Spa over his many, many years of racing here. And as he comes now towards Blanchimont, Stefan Ortelli in an Audi, flat out at Spa. Everything feels right in the world, doesn't it?
Life for Stefan Ortelli has been flat out, and it's never going to change.
And still ever smiling, great character, as that is Nick Homerson's Maserati that has limped back into the pit lane. Now that, remember, was stranded over at the exit of turn 9, and it's got back to the pit lane, so at least the team can get to work. 123 Mirko Zeiler for 6th place comes through. No, yes, it is still 6th. 7th is Roel Goethe, but across the line go the leaders. That gap's certainly opened up, hasn't it?
Yes, 3.4 seconds. So part of that was, I think, Ortelli getting past the Corvette quickly and cleanly, and then for the Aston not able to make the same kind of progress, and consequently lost the best part of, well, a second anyway.
So downhill go the leaders. And with one more lap to go at the end of this, looking at the clock, Ortelli versus Jordan Grosjean, Audi versus Aston Martin. GT3 car leads GT1 car. Now, what about the progress of Harry Newey? He's on, isn't he, here to get 3rd place. He's only about a second back now from James Sofronas. Look in the background, we might be able to see the Audi in a moment as it comes into view. And then, there is the Maserati behind. Roel Goethe being lapped. James Sofronas goes to the inside. Harrison Newey in the Maserati. He's closing. Goes to the inside line, and he's going to clear the Audi for 3rd place. Yep, done it, into the braking zone. Good pass by Harry Newey.
Yeah, saw and used all his experience and his natural sort of inherent speed. A young guy, a quick guy in any kind of race car, now makes his way past the Mercedes, and he's consolidated that 3rd position, and not an awful lot Sofronas is going to be able to do about it. In fact, struggling to get past the Mercedes into Bruxelles, and that's going to further, well, he's made it past now on the exit. Sofronas is maybe not going to give up, but at the pace that Newey has got, I can only see him pulling away by each turf here at Spa.
They come now into Pouan. There is James Sofronas, who I think he's going to fall back. Where's Philippe Cadore? He's a long, long way adrift now, isn't he, in the Aston? So James Sofronas should be good for 4th. And Harrison Newey, he ain't going to make up 14 seconds against Jordan Grosjean. Not with a lap to go, but been a fascinating stint, this. The emphasis on the owner to do more. So the pro drivers in those double driver entries, of course, get a limited amount to do, but when it's a pro owner like Stefan Ortelli, who can go on his own, it's perhaps no wonder that the car's got such excellent pace. Ready to start the last lap now.
Well, I just wonder, we said that we didn't think that anybody from WRT would be standing outside just to wave them off, but I think maybe there will be now, because could this be a portent to what we will have following the 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps, which will end at 4:45 on Sunday evening?
Over the timing line goes Stefan Ortelli, then up to La Source, goes through the corner. Back onto the power, drops downhill.
Short shifted from 2nd to 3rd gear, or 1st to 2nd gear. Very nice exit. Just watching the way Ortelli executed the final, or the first turn on this final lap. Again, wheel perfect up through Eau Rouge and over Radio, not running too aggressively on the curbs at Radio, keeping everything very much within his control, and he's got a gap of 5 seconds now to 2nd place.
So to Lecombe they come for the last time, and Stefan Ortelli has done a very impressive job here, given that he seemed very content early on to drive within himself, to drive away from people, not get caught up in any dramas, and then as the confidence level increased, so he would push, and it's worked really nicely for him as he comes down to Brussels. He's being chased by Jordan Grogor, and then Harrison Newey in third place, having done the fastest lap in a car that he's never raced before.
What would it be like if he had raced it on a regular basis? How much more performance can you... I mean, quite frequently you jump into a strange car, and as long as the car and you are of one, you can actually drive pretty quickly anyway, like with the experience that Harrison has got. It's not an issue, but of course you want to start developing the car a little bit more front wing, a bit less rear wing or whatever. You start tuning the car to suit the circuit.
Yeah. Well, he'll be in the car again tomorrow and will be even faster, I would think. But Stefan Ortelli has done a really impressive job here, as you would anticipate. He knows this car inside out, which has got to help, of course, going back to your Harry Newey point. But he comes down then now towards campus for the last time, and it's been a lovely trip down memory lane. It's a shame that one or two of the cars have had these gremlins, and hopefully we can get them back out for tomorrow. But it's been a very lively 55 minutes.
Up the hill for the last time on a racing lap into the first part of Blanchimont, which is really little more than a setting up process for the corner itself. A mighty corner, it always has been. It's been, let's say, calmed down a lot in terms of the safety runoffs on the outside, but nevertheless it's still a big challenge.
So the first SRO GT 30th anniversary by Peter Auto race about to be won by Stefan Ortelli. Stefan takes the checkered flag. Stefan Ortelli wins at Spa. We've said it time and time again. This is another race that matters to him. To celebrate 30 years of SRO organising GT races, Stefan Ortelli wins from Stuart Hall and Jordan Grogor. And then for third, Harrison Newey brings home Joe Macari's Maserati MC12. Through he goes. Then in fourth place, it will be James Sofronas in his Audi. But Stefan Ortelli has done a great job and takes a very, very well-deserved win in the car that in period was a Belgian Audi Club Team WRT entry. And now Stefan Ortelli as a soloist in the car after the 55 minutes of racing, which is a sort of normal endurance race stint, to a big round of applause from very appreciative 24-hour aficionados, takes the win.
Yeah, and a very popular driver, I think, around the GT world for many, many years, and is always smiling.
Yes, indeed. He was a loyal servant of Audi for many seasons in the end of his professional career. There, number 115, the Porsche of Mark Davis, comes home. He took over from Christian Gleisel, but that's got a penalty brewing, hasn't it? So that's going to fall away ultimately. But well done, Stefan Ortelli, and Stuart Hall doing a really good job in that first stint. Jordan Grogor, to be fair to him, did push as hard as he could to try to get back into the mix, but it just didn't happen for him.
No, again, once Ortelli had got the benefit of the lead, I think it was going to be very difficult. Even if Stuart Hall had been in the Aston Martin, I think he would have had his hands full trying to deal with Ortelli in a wheel-to-wheel battle.
So to Brussels comes then the winning Audi. So Audi, Aston Martin, Maserati, the top three, and Stefan Ortelli wins the GT3 class. Stuart Hall and Jordan Grogor win the GT1 class, and Maurizio Frati comes out on top in the GT2 class in the Porsche that finished in 10th place. So out of turn 9, the car's heading for pit lane on this in lap. So there are one or two teams with quite a lot of work to do, and it's a shame, as I say, that we lost a few during the second qualifying session today, because one or two represented earlier iterations of GT racing. So Stefan Ortelli it is who takes the win from Stuart Hall and Jordan Grogor, Joe Macari and Harrison Newey in third place. Fourth goes the way of James Sofronas ahead of Philippe Cadore, with Mirko Zeiler taking 6th ahead of Eddie Benazet. Then Roel Goethe from Franz Wunderlich and Maurizio Frati taking 10th. Guy Hover from Michael Ehrlich, then Michael Thurvany and Stefan Reutmeier, with Mark Davis and Christian Gleisel penalised down to 14th ahead of Alexander Lienau and Stefan Joche. 16th, Simon Evans in the only other car that got to the end of the race. Sadly, quite a few of them falling by the wayside, but hopefully Paul Phillips and Richard Mine's cars, and of course Ivan Vercouter's Maserati, can be made good for tomorrow.
the good aspect of all the, I think probably because all of the cars that retired, they're fundamentally of mechanical nature. So those are issues that hopefully can be overcome overnight.
Yeah, one or two of the Porsches we'd lost before the race was they dropped valves or they didn't have the parts here. But for the Maseratis, I mean, Vitaphone Racing Team still operating at a very high level and running customer cars in other championships, so one hopes that they've got the requisite parts. But the more modern a racing car, the more complex a beast it is. But those Audis, now we need a BMW Z4, don't we, to recreate the early days of what was the Blancpain Endurance Series when it was Mark VDS versus WRT.
Well, I rocked up on one this morning. In fact, I've had one all weekend.
You did? I'm not sure it was a GT3 homologated
No,
car.
it wasn't, and it didn't have a V8 4-litre engine in it either.
Nor Mark VDS livery. Apart from that, we'll let you in. But yeah, if you've got Stefan on the grid, we need Bas Linders, don't we, in a Mark VDS car?
Oh, you need Baz everywhere.
Yeah, well, quite. Or Maxime Martin, take the fight to him. Recreate those halcyon days of early GT3 times. Right, the cars trickle into the pit lane. Let's have a look at the start in the highlights of that race that began probably a lot more tightly bunched than we anticipated. James Sofronas was really on his toes and trying to go around the outside of Stuart Hall. Ivan Verkuter hanging on to the inside line for pole position, and Stefan Ortelli almost getting together with James Cadore, but Stefan eventually made that dive on the inside of Sofronas, went through. Stefan through into the lead of the unofficial Audi class. Then we had this little moment between Richard Mines and Nick Homerson. They were oh so close. There's a fraction of Lord Brabers. Around went the Maserati, and that put Nick Homerson effectively out of the race. And that trip through the gravel probably didn't do a great deal of good for the Aston Martin, which had two problems stopping out on the circuit. Roel Goethe was pressing on in the Gulf liveried Lamborghini, battling with Frans Wunderlich. Made his way through as Richard Mines, having pulled off the road, rejoined right in the path of Goethe, who took evasive action, but rather unorthodoxly, with two wheels in the gravel, and Richard Mines' car expired again at the bottom of the hill. Pit window opened, everybody had to serve their 3-minute pit stops. The cars cycled through, and that left Jordan Grodelaw in the lead, but then the car snapped away from him, coming down towards Bruxelles. And although he rejoined in the lead, it wasn't long before Stefan Ortelli was right on his tail and able to make the move, which was quite some move. In traffic, dived between the back marker and the leader, and took over the lead himself in a really courageous, really bold move on the inside line. Harry Zanui relieved James Sofronas of third place. And Stefan Ortelli powered through to win by 5.6 seconds. Remembering 30 years of GT racing organised by SRO, and one of the people that's played a key part in it, Stefan Ortelli, wins the first race of the weekend. So the cars there in the endurance pits, the old pits, and Stefan Ortelli takes off his crash helmet. Stefan Ortelli with the ex-WRT Audi. Off will come the helmet and the hands device, and the omnipresent smile. I'm sure he's going to be there. So it is Stefan Ortelli then who takes the race win. Let's hear his thoughts on that. He's with Richard.
Stefan Ortelli.
Yes.
I think as David Addison said, Stefan Ortelli wins at Spa again. Must be great.
Yeah, it's so nice to be here, especially with this car. I've been having a bit of good time with this Audi period here in Spa, celebrating the podium with so many good friends, some talented drivers. It's definitely the weekend of the best GT race world in the world, and part of the support race event with this old car makes me very happy. I have to say also congrats to all the grid, you know, with so many nice friends and beautiful cars. Yeah, thank you very much. It was very nice to do it.
A special moment, I saw you kissing the badge.
Yeah, it's also because we have a long history with Spa and Audi Belgium. Our late Didier Malvois was the head of the Belgium club, passed away a few years ago. Never had the chance to win again with an Audi. Today I did it, and I did it at the right place. So this one is for you, DJ.
Congratulations.
And another kiss to the badge. Stefan Ortelli wins the first 30th anniversary race of the weekend. Excellent job done. And there's James Safronas, who had a really good battle with him.
Just a little bit. On the start, I had fun. I had a lot of fun.
He had fun. Well, we did watching it.
Yeah, I mean, look at the size of James. I mean, he's carrying about another 40 kilograms compared to, I mean, that in itself is probably about a tenth of a second a lap.
Let's hear from James. Go on, Rich.
James, quite an exciting start for you to that race, I think.
Well, I was starting a little farther back than I'd like, so I knew I had to get a jump. The Audi's got great brakes, so get a good launch, get into the source hairpin there, and try and get a little gap there. I knew Ortelli was going to come eventually. I mean, he's a legend here, and I've learned a lot from him. So, you know, what a great experience here. Spa is magical. So for me, it was just great to be here and to drive this old Audi that's been with us for a long time. And why wouldn't you want to come here? And I have my beautiful wife and my good team, the boys at GMG Racing, flying all the way over here from California. We're definitely coming in from the farthest country. So, I mean, I'm super happy. You know, we got a little bit more left in it. Stefan showed me a few tricks, and hopefully go a little quicker tomorrow. But having a great time with SRO and Pirelli, and this is a great race that Stefan Rattel put together.
Listen, you said it all. Thank you. Good job. Good. Thanks.
Very happy James Safronas then, taking his Audi to second place in the GT3 class. And so there are podiums to come, but there's also still a very busy afternoon at Spa, because there is the warm-up for the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa and Superpole, and then also the GT4 first race still to come as well. So lots on track for the fans to see, which is good, because although they were allowed back last year, it was in rather limited numbers. This year feels like a proper 24 hours again.
Yes, and of course the big changes, the big changes that have taken place in the last year here at Spa-Francorchamps, the traditional tribune grandstands which faced the pits, they're gone for the moment. They will probably return, but the big difference is the massive tribune or grandstand at the top of Radio, which is a phenomenal place to view, because the view you get from there is the view that we have got right now on screen for you, and you can see the run all the way down from the source, down the hill into the first part of Eau Rouge, that left. It's almost barely a corner, but still, it's the key to getting the transition into Eau Rouge, getting it correct, and then the run up over the top of Radio, and on it goes.
Well, the podium is being made ready, and I think we're going to have classes rather than overall, but I'll prepare to be corrected on that, because there are classes for GT1, GT2 and GT3 cars. And Vincent Franson, who is the circuit commentator, is about to announce the GT1 drivers first by the sound of it, and though that will be in third place, Philippe Kaddouri with the Aston Martin DBR9, the Hong Kong driver who put up a really good fight in that race, certainly in the first stint, steps forward to collect his trophy. Then for second place, Harrison Newey and Joe Macari step forward for second place. We've lost them. Where are they? We have Philippe Kaddouri. Right, we've got Harrison Newey. And we need a Joe Macari somewhere. Where is he? Putting his overalls on. Well done, Joe. There he is. And fist bumps all round. And then the GT1 winners will be Jordan Grogor and Stuart Hall. Out comes Stuart. Out comes Jordan. They make their way to the top step of the podium for second overall GT1 class winners. And all smiles as the national anthem of the winning team is played. Stuart Hall and Jordan Grogor then celebrate and are given a right old soaking by Joe Macari and Harry Newey and Philippe Kaddouri. All smiles on the podium as the drivers then celebrate the end of our first 55-minute race for the GT1 cars, or GT anniversary cars. So we have those drivers now to make their way from the podium, and we'll get GT2 and GT3 done as well as quickly as possible before the track goes live once again. So the officials trying to have a one-way system, so you go off that way and on this way. So next GT2, the drivers for that set to be called forward. So out, first of all, should come the drivers from GT2. Third in the class would have been Mikael Ferveny and Stefan Reitmeier. Second, Mikael Ehrlich, who is, I think, there. And then we should have also Maurizio Frati. And, no, I'll tell you a lie, Guy Favre was the class winner, wasn't he? So there, Maurizio Frati arrives. And the Belgian national anthem. Right, Mark Davis is the man on the top step of the podium, but he had a penalty, so I'm not entirely sure that's the correct podium. Maurizio Frati was the winner of GT2, largely because of the penalty being applied. And anyway, there should have been Christian Glazel there to join in, so slight confusion, but I'm sure that'll be resolved in due course. And that then takes us to GT3, for which we should have in third place the car of Mirko Zeiler, the Chevrolet Corvette. Mirko Zeiler steps forward. Let's say second generation racer. His father was a pretty active GT racer, Tony Zeiler, for many years. Then for second place, James Sofronas, and then for the top step of the podium, the outright race winner, and that will be Stefan Ortelli. There's James Sofronas, and he walks across to say well done to Mirko. And then, yet again, the top step of a Spa podium is claimed by Stefan Ortelli. John, you made the point in the race that he's always smiling, and it might only be a relatively innocuous historic race, but it means so much to him.
Absolutely.
So well done, Stefan Ortelli. There's another race for these cars to enjoy tomorrow as part of the build-up to the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa, and we look forward to another lively race tomorrow. For now, though, well done to Stefan Ortelli as the race winner, and from David Anderson and John Watson in the booth, and Richard Hay, who's been relishing, I think, in his reminiscences up and down the pit lane from all of us. From at the moment, it's goodbye.
Le trophée du vainqueur de cette catégorie, la deuxième place, la troisième place pour James, deuxième place pour James Sofronas, pardon, la troisième pour Mirko Zeiler, et la coupe du vainqueur bien sûr pour Stefan Ortelli. Bravo Stéphane, ça fait honneur au circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, ça fait honneur aux 24 heures de Spa, et ça fait honneur à l'Historic Racing de Peter Otto, cette victoire avec cette Audi A8 LMS Ultra. Bravo Stéphane, bravo comme tu le Racing. Et vous savez quoi, on s'est bien amusé, on revient demain pour deux, et d'ici là, eh bien, c'est le warm-up des Total Energies Hours of Spa qui va pouvoir débuter.